bulldoze and completely rebuild the lodge at that hunting camp. So, you know, we went through a lot at that time due to Harvey. But I wanted to give you an example of, again, Victoria has Victoria Preservation Society, you know, VPI, and very active home tours every year. People redo homes, and we're like, okay, we're immune to the wrecking ball. Nothing bad could happen here. We're in touch with everything. We have the Victoria County Historical Commission, it's very active. And then we get notified by THC, hey, did you know your county has applied to demolish your county jail, your historic 1940 Art Deco county jail? And we're like, we didn't know anything about it. And I want to thank the city councilman, any elected official that's here and has helped save the Luther. That's a critical component to preservation, is getting elected officials behind your project. Because in this case, and I won't name names, you know, in Victoria, but it's at the county level. They had made the decision to demolish that county jail and put in a parking lot so that the commissioner's court would have private parking to go into the courthouse. And you can imagine what and I've been called a preservationist. Oh, he's one of those preservationists. I don't mind being called that. John Griffin and two other people and I got involved and formed the Concerned Citizens Group. So we started meeting with all the different commissioners, the county judge, and we were appearing, and in Victoria you get 5 minutes to talk before a meeting, not just 3. So we were up there every meeting until we got essentially, yeah, they said, no, we've already made up our mind. That's an ugly building, we're tearing it down. And it's like, no, that's not a reason to tear a building down. So you have to use dollars and cents sometimes to convince people. So we hired our own engineer to come in and look at the facility. They said, this was an old jail. The walls are so thick, it's gonna cost a fortune to tear this place down. And when you start jackhammering this, you're right next to your 1892 courthouse. What's it gonna do to that building? So you've got to plan your strategy and your attack on things like that. But we finally, you know, got them to agree to at least let us look at some options. So we wrote a grant through Victoria Preservation. We raised $75,000 to do a master plan, because we're talking to our commissioners saying, well, where's your plan? You're talking about, we've got a 1916 fire station right next to this 1940 county jail. And then across the street is the 1871 Continental Hotel. And you guys are talking about redoing this and moving people over. You have no plan. Where's your written plan? And wow. Nobody could tell us anything. So we said, we'll have one, we'll create one. We're gonna hire a firm out of Austin to draft a master plan for the courthouse square and these 3 county buildings. And they agreed to hold, they already put the 60-day notice. The sticker was on the door, on the building, on the courthouse square. And we got them to hold off on demolition. We got the grant, raised the money in about a week from 2 foundations, the O'Connor Hewitt and the Catherine O'Connor Foundation in Victoria. So we raised the money, hired a firm out of Austin, and did a master plan that says, you know, you're crazy to tear this thing down. Here's what you could do with this 19,000 square foot office building that you're gonna spend $2 million to tear it down. And that's not good use of taxpayer resources. So we put together this plan, and today we've stopped demolition. We still don't know what are we gonna do with it. And we're, you know, we are aware that you can't just save everything. Just because it's old doesn't mean it has to stay forever. You need a plan on, well, what are you gonna do with it? So we're trying, that's what we're working on now, is what will go in there. We're thinking a first responders museum, a veterans museum, we're trying to find some good purpose for keeping that thing other than just office space. But that would do. And it's one of the few examples of an Art Deco jail left in Texas. So, and again, that argument of, well, it's ugly, it ought to be torn down. You can't, that's not a good excuse. So we're able to save it thus far. A second one, well, ironically, is a Jules Lefland building in Victoria. Anchor Lumber Company. If you've ever been to Victoria, when you come in on the south side, as soon as you cross the river and you're looking at downtown, Anchor Lumber was right there on your right. And the office building for Anchor Lumber was designed in 1911 by Jules Lefland. And Dollar General, it was going to build their new Dollar General right where that lumber yard was sitting. And the plan was to demolish the whole thing. It had already, all the plans were done. And again, the same group of people, John Griffin was one of those, we got together and contacted, you got to get creative on these things. So Dollar General doesn't own any of their own stores. They lease them from the Overland Group out of Birmingham, Alabama. So we contacted Overland and said, you could save money and you don't have to pay to demolish this building over here. And if you save that, we'll find somebody to restore it. You can donate it, get a huge tax write-off. The city's not going to let you build in this space anyway. So there's no loss to you if you don't do demolition. So if you go into Victoria now, that building is still sitting there. The Dollar General is due to open in about 2 weeks, and the Anchor Lumber building, designed by Jules Lefland, is still sitting there. And they are going to donate it. This hasn't quite happened yet, but it's in the works. They're going to donate it to Victoria Preservation, who already has somebody that is going to pay to do a full restoration of the building. So, again, don't give up. If you find out your city is going to tear something down, be willing to fight for it. You may get plenty of complaints. I mean, like I said, being called a preservationist isn't the worst thing I've ever been called, but it's definitely worth the effort. So that's pretty much it. Again, if you wanna, I've got a couple of these. We're in house number 40. We're on this tour. That's a picture of our home right there. And if I see tour buses stop outside at our marker and I'm out working in the yard, I always go over and my wife is like, oh no, he's giving them the spiel. Let me tell you about this house. It's just a lot of fun being involved with things like that. So, all right. Well, again, thank you, and happy to answer any questions anyone has.
I want to add something. I want to add something to what he said. I was on the National Review Board back in the 1980s when we approved Victoria for the National Register, created National Register Historic District there. Yes. And I always thought that was great insight on the part of your community to do that.
And we're trying to update that right now. I think that was 86 that was done. I think so, yeah. And again, things like the Anchor Lumber building was actually on that list, and they were getting ready. They were all geared up to do demolition. It's like, no, this has been designated as historic. You got to wait 60 days. So that helped us there. Getting that historic designation can be a lifesaver, and it was in that case.
Other questions? You said you're a preservationist.
Yes.
And I mean, sometimes it really is a nasty word.
Oh, yeah.
How many preservationists are in here? Raise your hands.
How would you define preservation?
Anybody who wants to save historic buildings.
Oh, okay.
See, you're all guilty. You're all guilty. But no, it's a lot of fun doing it, and and when you see like Cuero has done a great job of redoing many of their old buildings, and our late executive director of VPI, Gary Dunham from Victoria, used to always say, the less prosperous towns and cities now have the prettiest landscapes because they could not afford to tear down all their old buildings and build new ones. So they couldn't afford to make all the changes, and now all these old historic buildings were left standing, and now they're gorgeous. So to see a picture of Victoria's original city hall and then compare it to what's sitting there now, it's like, who approved tearing that down to build this? So, you know, and our 1892 courthouse, the plan was to tear it down because it was gonna cost too much to preserve it. Well, enough people got together and raised the money and created a stink that if you tear that down, you're all being voted out of office. And that got everyone's attention, and now we have a beautiful courthouse there that's the centerpiece of downtown. So, you know, you have to be willing to fight for it.